Every January, you say the same things. This is my year. I'm getting out of debt. I'm building the business. I'm breaking the cycle. This time it's different. And every December, you're staring at the same bank account, the same stuck places, the same patterns you swore you'd break 12 months ago. You've blamed discipline, blamed the economy, blamed your upbringing, blamed timing. But what if the problem was never effort? There's a phrase in Exodus 20 that your English Bible mistranslated. The Hebrew doesn't say 10 commandments. It says Aseret ha-devarim, the 10 words. That's not a small distinction. In Hebrew, the word davar means word and thing at the same time. What you speak and what exists, same word. Because to the Hebrew mind, they're the same reality. God spoke and the universe appeared. Not because he wished hard, because a davar, a word, is a thing. The 10 words at Sinai aren't a list of rules to follow. They're the architecture of how reality works. And if you've been violating them, even unknowingly, you haven't been breaking God's rules. You've been building your life against the grain of the universe. 2 weeks until 2026. Same resolutions forming, same hopes rising. But what if this year you finally understood the architecture? The English word, commandment, carries a specific energy. Authority demanding compliance. A king issuing decrees. Do this or face consequences. That's how most believers experience the 10 Commandments. A list of thou shalt nots hanging over their heads. Follow the rules or disappoint God. Obey or face judgment. But the Hebrew word sitting in Exodus 20 isn't about compliance. It's about creation. Davar means word. Davar also means thing. Not two definitions for one word. One definition that holds both. To speak and to create aren't separate actions in Hebrew. They're the same action. When you open your mouth, you're not just making sounds, you're making things. Go back to Genesis 1. God said, "Let there be light." Light appeared. He didn't visualize it, didn't manifest it, didn't work hard and hope for the best. He spoke a davar, and reality rearranged itself to match what came out of his mouth. 10 times in Genesis 1, God speaks. 10 davarim, 10 word things that built everything you see. Then, in Exodus 20, God speaks again. 10 more times, 10 more davarim. But these aren't building mountains and oceans. These are building the structure for human flourishing. The 10 words aren't God telling you what you can't do. They're God showing you how things work. Think about gravity. You don't break the law of gravity and make gravity angry. You break yourself against gravity. Jump off a building and gravity doesn't punish you. You just discover what happens when you ignore how reality is structured. The 10 words operate the same way. When you steal, you're not offending a rule. You're cracking the foundation you're trying to build wealth on. When you covet, you're not breaking a commandment. You're pouring your creative energy onto someone else's property instead of your own. When you dishonor your parents, you're not making God mad. You're severing the generational line that blessing flows through. These aren't moral hoops. They're architectural principles. Your finances have architecture. Your relationships have architecture. Your future has architecture. And the 10 words are the blueprint. You've been treating them like a religious checklist. Something to feel guilty about when you fail. Something your pastor mentions when he wants the congregation to behave. But what if obedience was never about good behavior? What if it was about building a life that can actually stand? Every structure needs to account for gravity. Every life needs to account for the 10 words. Not because God is keeping score, because that's how reality works, and working against it guarantees collapse. You've been building. The question is whether you've been building with the architecture or against it. Isaac was old. His eyes had failed. He couldn't see his son standing in front of him, couldn't tell that Jacob had disguised himself in Esau's clothes and goatskins to steal the blessing meant for the firstborn. So Isaac blessed him, spoke prosperity over his future, declared abundance over his lineage, released the words that would shape everything. Then Esau walked in, the real Esau, the son who was supposed to receive that blessing. And when Isaac realized what had happened, that he'd been tricked, that his words had landed on the wrong son, Genesis 27:33 says he trembled violently. Not because he was angry, because he was terrified. Esau begged him, "Bless me too, Father. Take it back. Give me my blessing." Isaac couldn't do it. The words were already gone, already functioning, already building a reality that couldn't be undone. A davar had been released, and it existed now as a thing in the world, shaping destinies, redirecting futures, operating independently of Isaac's intentions. This is how Hebrew understands speech. English treats words as disposable. You say something, it floats in the air, it disappears. Words are just sounds. They don't weigh anything. You can take them back, apologize, pretend you didn't mean it. Hebrew doesn't work that way. A word and a thing are the same concept because they function the same way. When you speak, you're not just communicating, you're constructing. Every sentence is a brick. Every declaration is a blueprint. The prophets understood this. When scripture says, "The davar of the Lord came to Jeremiah," it doesn't mean God gave him information to pass along. It means God handed him a word thing to deploy. The prophet wasn't predicting the future. He was releasing a davar that would shape it. Now bring this into your own mouth. What have you been speaking over your finances for the last 5 years? Not your prayers, your actual words. The sentences you mutter when the bills come. The declarations you make when something unexpected breaks. The things you say about money when you think nobody important is listening. I'll never get ahead. Something always goes wrong. I'm just not good with money. People like me don't build wealth. You thought those were observations, frustrations, venting. They were davarim, word things, bricks laid one on top of another until you built a structure around yourself that you now can't seem to escape. Isaac couldn't reverse his blessing because words don't work that way. They land, they build, they create realities that persist long after the sound fades. Your words have been building too. The question is what you've constructed and whether you want to keep living inside it. When an architect designs a building, they don't make up the rules. They work with gravity, load-bearing principles, material properties, wind resistance. The laws already exist. The architect's job is alignment, creating something that works with how reality functions rather than against it. The 10 words are architectural principles for human life. God didn't sit down and invent arbitrary restrictions to test your obedience. He revealed how things work. The structure was already there, woven into creation from the beginning. Sinai was the unveiling, not the invention. No other gods before me. Not because God is insecure, because divided focus creates divided power. You can't build a business serving 2 visions. You can't build wealth chasing every opportunity. Singular devotion isn't religious obligation. It's how anything of substance gets constructed. No idols. Don't pour your creative energy into something that can't pour back. An idol takes your worship and gives nothing in return. Every hour you spend obsessing over something that can't bless you is an hour stolen from what can. Don't carry God's name in vain. This isn't about saying, "Oh my God," when you're surprised. Carrying the name means representing it. When you claim covenant with God but live like there's no covenant, you're building an identity on a lie. Cracked foundations collapse. Remember the Sabbath. Rest is built into how reality regenerates. We covered this in a previous teaching. The Hebrew word for Sabbath shares its root with the word for sitting enthroned. The one who can cease from labor is the one who truly rules. Honor your father and mother. The only word with a promise attached, that your days may be long and it may go well with you. Generational blessing flows through honored lines. Sever the connection and you sever the flow. Don't murder. Life-giving posture toward others creates a life-giving environment around you. What you sow into other people's existence, you harvest in your own. Don't commit adultery. Covenant faithfulness isn't just moral, it's structural. Every broken covenant weakens your capacity for trust, including your own ability to trust what God speaks over you. Don't steal. Wealth built on taken things leaks. Integrity isn't just ethical. It's the only container that holds long-term prosperity. Don't bear false witness. Truth is currency. Spend lies and you devalue every word you speak, including the ones you're trying to build your future with. Don't covet. Your creative attention is a davar too. Fix it on someone else's portion and you're building on their land instead of yours. 10 words. 10 architectural principles. 10 structures that determine whether what you build stands or falls. We're going to look at 4 of them closely, the 4 that most directly shape your ability to build wealth, establish generational blessing, and step into 2026 on a foundation that can actually hold what you're believing for. We've already done a deep teaching on Sabbath, so I won't repeat the whole thing here. I will, however, leave the link to it in the comment section. However, Sabbath has to be mentioned because it's one of the 10 Davarim, and it's the only one that's about time. All the other words address relationships, actions, internal posture. This one addresses the calendar. God carved rest into the rhythm of reality and said, "This is how things regenerate." The Hebrew word Shabbat comes from a root that means to cease, to stop, to desist. But here's what's easy to miss. That same root gives us Shevet, which means to sit, to dwell, to be enthroned. Slaves work 7 days. They have no authority over their own time. Their labor belongs to someone else, so they produce constantly, endlessly, without pause. Kings sit. The ability to cease from labor is the mark of someone who rules rather than someone who's ruled. Sabbath isn't about being lazy. It's about demonstrating to yourself, to the spiritual realm, to your own nervous system, that your provision doesn't depend on your panic. When you can't stop working, you're declaring something with your actions. You're saying, if I rest, I'll fall behind. If I pause, I'll lose. My survival depends on my output. That's a davar, a word thing. And it's building a reality of slavery around you even if nobody's holding a whip. The person who keeps Sabbath is making a different declaration. I can stop because my source isn't my hustle. I can cease because the one who provides doesn't take the 7th day off from being God. Jewish families have practiced this for 3,000 years. Every Friday at sundown, everything stops. Business pauses. Phones go dark. Deals wait until after sunset on Saturday. And somehow, through exile, persecution, discrimination, and every obstacle imaginable, they've built more generational wealth than any other people group on earth. Maybe the rest isn't slowing them down. Maybe it's the foundation everything else is built on. You're heading into 2026 with a list of goals and a plan to outwork last year. More hours, more hustle, more grind. But the 4th word says something different. It says rest is built into how reality regenerates. It says the universe has a rhythm, and fighting against it is fighting against your own flourishing. Sabbath isn't a suggestion buried in the Old Testament. It's a davar, a word thing spoken by God to structure human life. Are you building with it or against it? 9 of the 10 words come with no promise attached. They're simply stated. Do this, don't do that. The architecture is revealed and you're left to align with it or not. But the 5th word is different. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Long life, things going well, prosperity in your land. This is the only word that comes with a specific blessing attached, and it's about your relationship with your parents. The Hebrew word for honor is kavod. It means weight, heaviness, substance. It's the same root as the word used for God's glory, the weighty presence that fills a space. To honor your parents isn't about being nice to them on holidays. It's about giving weight to where you came from, treating your origin as substantial rather than shameful. Recognizing that you didn't appear out of nowhere. You're the continuation of a line. Generational wealth doesn't flow through severed connections. Think of it like a pipe. Blessing moves down through generations. Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to the 12 tribes. Each generation receiving from the one before and passing it to the one after. That's how lineage works in Hebrew thought. You're not an isolated individual, you're a link in a chain, but dishonor cuts the pipe. When you curse your parents, even when they deserve it, you're severing yourself from the line. When you speak against your origins, mock where you came from, vow to be nothing like them, you're not just expressing frustration, you're releasing a davar that disconnects you from the flow. This is hard teaching for people who came from painful homes. Abusive fathers, absent mothers, dysfunction that left scars you're still carrying decades later. Honoring doesn't mean excusing. It doesn't mean pretending the damage didn't happen. It doesn't mean giving them access to your life if they're still toxic. It means releasing the words of cursing. It means refusing to let bitterness write the script for your future. It means recognizing that even flawed people deposited something in you, life itself at minimum, and that dishonoring them clogs the pipe you need open for blessing to flow. I've watched people stuck financially for years finally break through when they dealt with parent wounds. Not because they reconciled relationships that needed to stay distant, because they stopped speaking death over their origins. They pulled the davarim of dishonor out of the ground and cleared the channel. Long life, things going well, prosperity in your land, the only word with a promise attached. And it's about honoring the line you came from. What have you been saying about your parents, out loud, in your head, to your spouse late at night? Those words are building something, or blocking something. The fifth word says the blessing flows through honored lines. Is yours open or clogged? This one seems obvious. Don't take what isn't yours. Basic morality, kindergarten ethics. But the Hebrew understanding of stealing goes far beyond robbery. The rabbis taught that theft includes things you'd never think to confess. Stealing time, showing up late to a meeting, wasting someone's hour because you couldn't be bothered to plan. Stealing reputation, saying something about a person that costs them standing in someone else's eyes. Stealing peace, creating unnecessary anxiety in another person's life through carelessness or manipulation. Every time you take credit for work you didn't do, you're stealing. Every time you promise value you don't deliver, you're stealing. Every time you cut a corner that shifts the cost onto someone else, you're stealing. And here's why this matters for your money. Wealth built on stolen things doesn't hold. It's not that God is keeping a ledger and waiting to punish you, it's architectural. Integrity is the container that holds long-term prosperity. Crack the container and whatever you pour in leaks out. You've watched people build fast on shady foundations, shortcuts that seem to work. Deals that were technically legal but ethically hollow. They got ahead for a while. Then something shifted. The business collapsed. The partnership imploded. The money that came easy left easier. Proverbs calls it ill-gotten gain. Not because there's a category of money that's cursed, but because the manner of acquisition determines the structural integrity of what's built. The person who earns slowly through honest exchange is building with solid material. Every dollar has integrity baked into it. The container holds. The person who takes shortcuts is building with cracked bricks. Looks fine at first. Won't survive the storm. This is a hard audit to do on yourself. Nobody wants to admit they've been stealing. But before 2026 begins, it's worth asking. Is there anywhere you've taken what wasn't fully yours? Credit that belonged to someone else? Time you owed but didn't pay? Value you promised but never delivered? Money that came through shaded means? This isn't about guilt. Guilt doesn't build anything. This is about architecture. You want your 2026 to hold wealth that compounds, provision that stays, blessing that builds instead of leaks. That requires a container with no cracks. The eighth word is simple: don't steal. But the application reaches into every invoice you send, every promise you make, every hour you bill for, every relationship where you've taken more than you've given. Integrity isn't just moral, it's structural. It's the difference between a foundation that holds a skyscraper and one that crumbles under a single story. What needs to be made right before you step into the new year, not so God will forgive you, so your container can hold what He's about to pour. 9 words address what you do. This one addresses what you want. Don't murder. That's an action. Don't steal. That's an action. Don't commit adultery. Action. But don't covet. That's internal. That's desire. That's where your attention goes when nobody's watching. Why does God care what you want? Because wanting is a davar too. The Hebrew word is shamad, to desire, to fix your eyes on something and delight in it, to look at what belongs to someone else and feel the pull of longing. Your neighbor's house, your co-worker's promotion, your friend's marriage, your competitor's client list, that influencer's lifestyle, that family's ease. When you covet, you're not just feeling envy. You're aiming your creative energy at someone else's portion. Remember, your attention is a word thing. Where you fix your focus, you're building. What you speak about repeatedly, you're constructing. Your mental and emotional energy isn't neutral, it's generative. So when you spend hours scrolling someone else's success, comparing your middle to their highlight reel, fixating on what they have that you don't, you're pouring your building materials onto their property. You're constructing on land you'll never own. Meanwhile, your own portion sits untended. Your own assignment gathers dust. Your own field waits for the attention you're lavishing on someone else's harvest. Coveting also declares something. Every time you ache for what someone else has, you're releasing a davar of lack. I don't have that. I should have that. Why them and not me? Those words are building a structure of scarcity around you. You're constructing walls of lack with every envious thought, every bitter comparison, every resentful glance at someone else's blessing. The opposite of coveting isn't just contentment. Contentment sounds passive, like you're settling. The opposite of coveting is creative focus on your own assignment. What has God put in your hand? What portion has He marked for you? What field has your name on it that you've been neglecting because you were too busy staring at the field next door? Your energy is finite. Your attention is limited. Every minute spent studying someone else's breakthrough is a minute not spent building your own. 2026 is coming. You can spend it measuring yourself against people who have nothing to do with your assignment, tracking their numbers, feeling the sting every time they announce something new. Or you can build. The 10th word says, stop leaking your davar onto other people's portions. Stop constructing on land that was never yours. Stop declaring lack with every covetous thought. Fix your eyes on your own field. Speak over your own assignment. Pour your creative energy into the portion God has actually given you. Let them have their harvest. Build yours. 2 weeks from now, you'll write a date you've never written before. New calendar, clean page. That feeling you get every January where anything seems possible and last year's failures feel like they belong to a different person. You'll set goals, make declarations, maybe even pray over the year and ask God to bless what you're building. But here's what this teaching has been driving toward. Your words and God's words are either building the same structure or working against each other. And 2026 can be radically different from every year that came before. Not because you'll try harder, but because you'll finally build with the architecture instead of against it. God has something in store for you this coming year. Not a vague religious hope. A reality He's already marked. A provision He's already signed. A breakthrough that's already carrying the Aleph Tav. His signature, His seal, His completion waiting to manifest. But you can block what God has prepared. You can build walls around yourself with your own Devarim that keep out what heaven is trying to deliver. You can violate the architecture so consistently that even blessing can't find a structure stable enough to land on. Or you can align and watch what God does when your words and His words are finally building the same thing. Let me give you something practical to carry into the new year. Before you set a single goal for 2026, spend 1 week listening to yourself. Not changing anything yet, just listening. What do you say about money when the bills arrive? What sentences come out of your mouth when something unexpected breaks? What words do you speak over your business when nobody's listening? What declarations do you make about your capacity, your limitations, your potential? Write them down. Actual pen on actual paper. Every davar you catch yourself releasing about your finances, your future, your ability to build wealth. Most people have never done this. They're so used to their own voice that they don't hear what they're constructing. The words have become background noise, but background noise that's been laying bricks for years. After 1 week, look at what you've written. Look at the structure you've been building with your mouth. I'll never get ahead. Something always goes wrong. I'm just not good with money. Rich people are lucky. I'm not lucky. These aren't observations. They're blueprints. And you've been following them faithfully without knowing it. Now, and only now, start rebuilding. Not with fake positivity, not with affirmations you don't believe, with davarim that align with what God has spoken over you. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. My God supplies all my needs according to His riches in glory. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. These aren't magic words. They're architectural materials. When you speak them, you're not just quoting scripture. You're building with the same substance God used to create the universe. Your 2026 Dover vocabulary needs to change. Not because positive thinking works, but because word things are real and you've been constructing poverty with your mouth while praying for prosperity on your knees. Before 2026 arrives, choose your Sabbath rhythm. Friday sundown to Saturday sundown if you want to align with the biblical pattern, or a different 24-hour period if your work situation makes that impossible. But choose it, mark it, treat it as non-negotiable before the year even begins. Most people wait until they're burned out to rest. They collapse into recovery instead of building rest into the rhythm. That's not Sabbath, that's damage control. Sabbath is preemptive. It's declaring in advance that your provision doesn't depend on your panic. It's training your nervous system to believe that ceasing from labor won't cause you to fall behind. The most productive people I know guard their rest more fiercely than they guard their work hours. They've learned that creativity refills during stillness, that solutions appear when you stop grinding. That wealth builds on a rested mind more sustainably than an exhausted one. Your 2026 will contain 52 potential Sabbaths, 52 opportunities to reset, to declare trust, to sit enthroned instead of scrambling like a slave. Don't wait until March to figure this out. Build the rhythm now. Block the time before anything else gets scheduled. Make rest the foundation of your year, not an afterthought you never get around to. This one might be the hardest, but it might also be the one holding you back the most. Before the year turns, deal with your parents, not necessarily in person, not necessarily through reconciliation if the relationship is toxic, but in your own heart, in your own mouth, in the davarim you've been releasing about where you came from. Some of you have spent years cursing your origins, speaking against your father's failures, rehearsing your mother's mistakes, vowing to be nothing like them, building an identity on the foundation of their dysfunction. Those words have been working. They've been building a structure of disconnection. They've been clogging the pipe that generational blessing flows through. The fifth word comes with a promise: long life, things going well, prosperity in your land. And it's tied directly to honor. Here's what you can do before 2026. Write down every davar of dishonor you can remember speaking about your parents, every curse, every vow, every bitter declaration. Then renounce them, out loud, alone in your car or your bedroom or wherever you can speak without being heard. I renounce the words I spoke against my father. I release him from my judgment. I cancel the davarim of dishonor I built around my own life. I renounce the words I spoke against my mother. I release her from my bitterness. I clear the channel I've been blocking with my own mouth. This isn't about letting them off the hook for real damage they caused. This is about removing the bricks you built that are now walling you in. Then speak honor, not to their face if that's not safe, but into the atmosphere, into the spiritual reality where davarim do their work. I honor my father for giving me life. I honor my mother for carrying me. I honor the line I came from, even the broken parts, because God can redeem what was damaged, and I refuse to cut myself off from generational blessing any longer. Do this before January 1st. Clear the pipe, open the channel. Let 2026 be the first year in a long time where blessing can actually flow through your family line instead of getting stuck at the wall of dishonor you built. Wealth requires a container that holds. If your container is cracked with integrity breaches, whatever God pours in will leak out. Before 2026, ask yourself honestly, is there anything I need to make right? An invoice you padded, a promise you never kept, credit you took for someone else's work, time you stole from an employer, a deal where you shaded the truth to close it. This isn't about perfection, it's about cracks. You might need to send an email, make a phone call, write a check, apologize to someone who doesn't even know they were wronged. Do it before the year turns. Don't carry those cracks into your new season. Patch the container before you ask God to fill it. Coveting has a cure: radical attention to your own portion. What has God actually given you? What's in your hand right now? What field has your name on it that you've been neglecting because you were too busy staring at someone else's harvest? Before 2026 begins, get clear on your assignment. Not what you wish you were called to. Not what looks successful when someone else does it. What has God actually put in front of you? What seeds has He placed in your hand that you haven't planted because you were too busy envying someone else's fruit? Write it down. Your assignment, your portion, your field. Then make a decision. For the next 12 months, you're going to pour your Devar energy there. Your attention, your words, your creative focus. All of it onto your own land. Let them have their harvest. You're building yours. Here's what I believe about your 2026. God has already been there. The Aleph Tav, the first and the last, has already walked through your next 12 months and marked what He's doing. Provision is signed. Breakthrough is sealed. Opportunities are waiting that you don't even know to ask for yet. But you can partner with it or you can block it. You can align your Davarim with His Davarim. Your words building the same structure His words are building. You can rest like someone who trusts their provider. You can honor the line you came from. You can build on a foundation of integrity. You can focus your creative energy on your own assignment. And when you do, something shifts. Not because you've earned the blessing, because you've finally stopped blocking it. Because the architecture of your life is aligned with the architecture of reality. Because your mouth and God's mouth are building the same thing. 2026 is 2 weeks away. The 10 words are still operating. They've been shaping reality since Sinai, and they're not waiting for your awareness to keep functioning. But now you're aware. Now you know what Davar means. Now you understand that every sentence is a brick and every declaration is a blueprint. What will you build? God has already marked your 2026 with His signature. Provision is coming. Breakthrough is coming. Things you've waited years for are closer than you think. The only question is whether you'll finally stop building against the grain and start building with it. Align your words, align your rest, align your honor, align your integrity, align your focus. Then watch what God does with a life that's finally building on the right foundation. Your 2026 is waiting. The architecture is set. Now build. If this shifted something in how you see the commandments, subscribe. We decode the Hebrew that rewires how you read Scripture and build your life. Comment below. Which of the 10 words do you need to align with most before 2026? The architecture is real. The 10 words are still speaking.